This black girl stopped the court and told the judge that she was hungry. She shocked everyone with what she did. As Nia stepped in front of the judge, the tension in the courtroom was palpable. With a grave expression on his face, the judge sat behind the enormous oak desk. He was Judge Callisto, and regardless of the person in trouble, he had a reputation for following the law. Nia, a single mother, was in court due to $200 parking charges that she was finding difficult to pay. She tried to justify not having to pay the huge parking fine as she stood tensely in front of the judge. The judge was being distracted by the audience members' whispers as they attempted to predict the result. "Order in the court," he shouted, banging his gavel. The court fell silent. Then, a high-pitched voice interrupted with the request for hamburgers. The tiny voice was speaking next to Nia. That was Nia's 6-year-old daughter, Maya. Nia, and everyone else in the courtroom, gasped. Everyone else in the courtroom gasped. Normally, everyone would have laughed at Maya's innocent comment, but Judge Callisto's court was renowned for its severity. This kind of immature outburst was unprecedented and inexcusable. Nia's blush turned scarlet with shame. Had her kid, who was 6 years old, just destroyed their hopes of escaping this situation? Nia gave Maya a worried glance, but the young child only stood next to her mother, her eyes wide and innocent. Judge Callisto appeared unconcerned, though. In contrast to the others, his eyebrows shot up in surprise, but his face was devoid of rage. Nia bowed before Maya, swiftly telling her in a whisper that they were not allowed to interrupt the judge. They had hoped that Maya's presence would placate the judge, but she now worried that this immature outburst would anger him even more. She was a little ashamed, especially after realizing that they probably came across as careless because of Maya's outburst. Judge Callisto cast a sidelong glance at the tiny interloper who was restless beside her mother. "Did you say hamburgers, young lady?" the judge questioned Maya in an unexpectedly kind tone. His question was distinct from the harsh statements he typically made in court. With curiosity about Maya's reaction and the judge's potential next move, everyone was staring at her. Nia held her breath, praying that they wouldn't regret it. However, Maya chose not to respond to the judge's query. Nia glanced worriedly at Maya, who didn't seem to be aware of the tension she'd created. Rather than looking at the judge, the small girl's large brown eyes appeared to be fixed on a painting of a somber-looking man wearing a wig that was hanging on the wall. Callisto, though, did not blow out as Nia had expected. He just turned his eyes from Maya to Nia. For a little while, the quietness persisted, giving Nia the impression of a bug under a microscope. Judge Callisto eventually resumed his speech and questioned Maya, saying, "Is there anything you'd like to tell me, young lady?" But Maya moved forward toward the judge's bench before Nia could respond. She nodded and said, "Yes, sir." She complained to the judge that her stomach was growling loudly. She was getting hungry from all the talking, and she and her mother still hadn't had breakfast. Nia became even more mortified. Her daughter was requesting food while she was attempting to clarify a critical matter in front of a severe judge. The morning rush had been something else. Even though she knew they ought to have stopped for something to eat before heading to court, getting Maya dressed and making sure she had everything she needed were her tasks, making up reasons for Maya's school and work while enduring rush-hour traffic. Now the judge might see them as even worse. Despite her daughter's candor appearing nice and even endearing, Nia started to apologize, but the judge interrupted her with a slight wave. He warned Maya that, particularly when she was hungry, the court may be a lengthy and dull place. "Why don't you come up here and tell me more about these hamburgers?" he continued. Everyone was taken aback by the judge's inquiry, and even Judge Callisto appeared a little uncertain. After inquiring about hamburgers, Maya looked at her mother to ask for permission. Nia, not knowing what to anticipate, could only nod. Maya skittered joyfully over to the formidable judge's desk. Smiling, she went to the tiny platform before the magistrate's chair. With a startled expression, Judge Callisto reclined in his chair and observed her approach. Things in his courtroom did not typically proceed like this. Everyone in the courtroom appeared to be holding their breath, anticipating Judge Callisto's next move. Was he still upset over being cut off? Would he punish Maya for disobeying the judge? Nobody, not even Nia, could have anticipated the judge's unexpected response. Nia's life was a never-ending battle between employment, childcare, and making ends meet as a single mother of her energetic 6-year-old daughter Maya. With the exception of Maya waking up sniffling and coughing, which is a major warning that a cold is approaching, every morning was an experiment in balancing these demands. Nia had to retrieve Maya's medication before work, but she also had to get to her bakery shift on time. Nia started getting ready as soon as she could. She packed a tiny bag with tissues and mints, wrapped Maya in warm clothes, and made sure she had her favorite stuffed animal for comfort. Sadly, her wishes went unmet as she hurried Maya out the door, praying that traffic wouldn't be too bad. All of the traffic lights appeared to be red, making the typically short drive to the drugstore feel incredibly difficult. Nia was already running late when she made it to the store. Worry was in the air as soon as Nia's car got into the pharmacy parking lot. Regretfully, every parking space was reserved. She noticed a vacant place next to the door, but it was reserved for wheelchairs. Though Nia knew better than to park there, time was of the essence. She glanced at the empty store and quickly did some math. Nia made a poor choice. As Maya was coughing in the back seat, "It will only take a few minutes," she told herself. She parked in the wheelchair space, figuring there wouldn't be any cars waiting for her and that she would be in and out quickly. But for single mothers, things never turn out well. The few minutes stretched to 10, then 15, and yet the drugstore line moves slowly, taking an age to sort out each person's prescription. Before Nia, after obtaining the medication, Nia virtually ran back to the car. As she approached her car, she started to worry, since she felt a little bad for taking a chance with the parking space. Had her absence been excessive? When she noticed the vivid orange envelope nestled beneath her windshield wiper, her concerns were confirmed. For parking illegally, there was a $200 parking charge. Nia felt the number like a gut punch. For Nia, whose budget was already limited, $200 was a significant blow. That accounted for over half of her weekly grocery spending. How was she going to pay for this? Over the next few days, Nia calculated and rationed. She accounted for lost time on everything, including gas for the car and her daily coffee. Finally, though, the $200 restriction on her budget was still a lot. Nia had to acknowledge the truth of the circumstance. She could not possibly afford such a charge. She was faced with a difficult choice: either pay the fine and miss rent payments that month, or appear in court to make her case. The thought of traveling to Courtfield intimidated Nia. The judges seemed daunting and the processes complex. Yet $200 was too much to bear. Nia chose to take her chances in court. If she explained everything clearly, perhaps the judge might show mercy. In the days before her hearing, Nia studied parking laws and practiced her justification. As the date approached, her nerves grew. Would the magistrate even consider her reasoning? Could she convince him to dismiss the ticket? Her confidence nearly vanished when she entered the towering courthouse with its high ceilings and stern-faced security officers. The stories she'd heard about Judge Callisto's strictness made her palms sweat. The courtroom atmosphere felt heavy with formality when she finally stood before the judge, its darkness and seriousness pressing down on her. Nia's hands trembled violently as she spoke. Her voice wavered slightly as she laid out her case, the frantic morning rushing for Maya's medicine, the impossible parking dilemma, the crushing weight of single motherhood. Every word had been rehearsed for days, polished to demonstrate how desperation, not disregard, led to her mistake. She spoke carefully, articulately, pouring genuine plea into each syllable. Judge Callisto remained stone-faced. His imposing silence and unreadable expression offered no lifeline. Nia fought rising frustration, not just at his notorious rigidity, but at the entire system he embodied. This was a man who wielded the law like an unflinching blade. No mitigating circumstances, no second chances. Just cold assessment of facts and maximum penalties. As she watched him leaf through her file with methodical detachment, each rustling page sounded like a cell door clanging shut. Her meticulously prepared defense might as well have been whispers against a hurricane. The courtroom's stale air grew heavier with each passing second of his silence. The judge's sharp interrogation focused solely on the parking violation, dismissing her circumstances entirely. His stone-cold demeanor suggested he might not just uphold the fine, but increase it for wasting the court's time. Nia braced for defeat until an unexpected voice shattered the tension. Maya, silent until now, suddenly blurted out, "Can we get hamburgers?" Nia's stomach dropped. She hadn't prepared her daughter for courtroom decorum, but this outburst was beyond anything she'd imagined. "We didn't have time for breakfast," Nia whispered apologetically, certain this would confirm the judge's view of her as both a reckless driver and neglectful mother. Yet as Maya and Judge Callisto sat eye to eye before the stunned courtroom, something shifted. The child's innocent request, just hunger cutting through legal formalities, softened the air. Even Nia found herself moved by her daughter's simple need to escape this oppressive room and find something warm to eat. The judge leaned toward Maya, his voice uncharacteristically gentle. "Just a few questions," he assured the girl, acknowledging their difficult morning. His first inquiry surprised everyone. "What work does your mother do?" Emboldened by his kindness, Maya answered immediately. "Mama works so hard. She bakes cakes all night at the bakery, and sometimes waits tables too." Her small voice carried through the silent courtroom, painting an unexpected portrait of Nia's exhausting reality. Judge Callisto's expression softened as he continued his quiet questioning. Through Maya's innocent perspective, the court learned deeper truths. The late shifts stretching past midnight, the constant juggling of jobs, the 6-year-old's awareness of their financial struggles. A hush fell over the room as Maya described how rarely she saw her mother between work rotations. The bailiff stopped fidgeting. The stenographer's fingers stilled. Even the fluorescent lights seemed to dim as Nia's sacrifices were laid bare, not through legal arguments, but through a child's unfiltered honesty. The courtroom's perception shifted abruptly. Where they'd seen only a parking violator minutes before, now stood a struggling single mother laid bare. Maya's artless words had peeled back layers of hardship no legal argument could convey. Nia's chest ached as her daughter unwittingly exposed their private struggles, the bakery shifts bleeding into restaurant work, the scant hours between paychecks. A wave of sorrow crashed over her, dredging up older pains. Single motherhood wasn't just about balancing jobs and childcare. It meant daily battles with the ghost of Darius's betrayal. She'd met him fresh from his prison release for possession. Maya, barely 3. 4 years of believing his promises, until the night he vanished with their rent money. The memories still cut like the winter wind slicing through their thin apartment walls. Darius had sworn he was clean, vowing to devote himself to their fledgling family. Love and desperate hope had blurred Nia's judgment. She'd believed him. Back then, she'd been squirreling away tips for nursing school, dreaming of a fresh start where she'd advance her career while they raised Maya together. When Darius noticed her relentless work ethic and even offered to help budget, Nia mistook it for reform. She let herself imagine a stable future, until the morning she woke to hollow silence. The shoebox under the bed sat empty, her savings, Darius, all gone. The cruelest cut came weeks later. He hadn't just stolen her dreams. He'd run off with her younger sister too. The truth struck like a knife to the ribs. Darius had been secretly involved with Nia's own sister. Her sibling, swayed by his empty promises, chose him over family. The double betrayal left Nia hollow. Not only had Darius stolen her savings and abandoned his child, but he'd poisoned her closest blood bond too. Police reports yielded nothing. The money, and the traitors, vanished without trace. Nia's nursing school applications yellowed in a drawer as she scrambled between diner shifts and overnight bakery work. That stolen $4,000 might as well have been $1 million. Its absence made a $200 ticket feel catastrophic. Now, as Maya's guileless words painted their daily struggles, the courtroom's atmosphere shifted. Judge Callisto leaned forward, his stern demeanor cracking as he asked, "Tell me more about your mom's jobs, little one." For the first time, Nia saw something unfamiliar in his eyes, not judgment, but recognition. Judge Callisto's stern demeanor softened with each of Maya's answers. Nia watched in disbelief as the famously rigid judge's eyes warmed with something unexpected, compassion. Then came the bombshell no one saw coming. Leaning toward Maya, the judge asked, "Well, Maya, since your mommy broke the parking rule, what do you think her punishment should be?" The courtroom froze. Nia's breath caught. Was he seriously consulting a 6-year-old on legal judgment? Maya, utterly unfazed, tilted her head. "You're the good judge," she said with startling wisdom. "You should decide." Laughter erupted, real, unfiltered mirth that echoed off the oak-paneled walls. Even Judge Callisto's lips twitched upward, cracking the courtroom's usual tension like sunlight through storm clouds. Maya's innocent charm had clearly disarmed the stern judge. As the courtroom held its collective breath, Judge Callisto leaned back in his high-backed chair, fingers steepled in thought. Then, a surprise ruling. "Brief recess," he declared, raising his hand. The bailiff approached the bench, nodding at the judge's whispered instructions, before disappearing through a side door. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. What was happening? The answer came when the bailiff returned clutching a brown paper bag. Judge Callisto accepted it with a smile, presenting it to Maya like a sacred offering. "For your rumbling stomach," he said gently. Inside, juice boxes and neatly wrapped sandwiches. Maya's beaming smile could have powered the courthouse lights. Nia fought back tears. This small kindness meant everything in their strained world. When court resumed, something had shifted. The judge meticulously reviewed Nia's spotless driving record and clean legal history, his usual brusque manner replaced by thoughtful consideration. 9 years of spotless driving, this single parking ticket stood alone in Nia's record. Judge Callisto turned to her, the courtroom tensing as he prepared to speak. Then came the ruling no one expected. Case dismissed. The gallery erupted in applause. Nia's knees nearly buckled as relief surged through her, like shedding 100-pound weight. But the judge wasn't finished. He produced a printed list, his voice uncharacteristically warm. "The court recognizes the challenges single parents face." The paper shimmered with possibilities. Free childcare services, vocational training programs, even online degree options. Most were fully subsidized. For the first time in years, Nia dared to imagine more than survival. Tears of gratitude welled in Nia's eyes, the dismissed ticket now meaningless compared to this lifeline. Words failed her as she tried to thank the judge, her voice catching in her throat. Judge Callisto simply smiled. To him, this wasn't leniency. It was justice tempered with humanity. No thanks necessary. News of the judge's compassion spread like wildfire. Local headlines celebrated the hamburger ruling, while social media marveled at the tough judge who'd softened for a hungry child and her struggling mother. For weeks after, courthouse staff would find sticky notes on their desks. Be more like Callisto today. The dismissed ticket was just the beginning. With the judge's resources, child care support, and that life-changing education program, Nia finally saw a path forward. For the first time in years, putting Maya to bed didn't mean calculating which bill to delay. Her textbook sat stacked beside Maya's crayon drawings, a tangible promise of better days. Judge Callisto found himself changed too. That morning in court had cracked open something long sealed, the understanding that justice without mercy often fails its purpose. His gavel grew lighter in hand afterward, his sentences more measured. The law, he now saw, was a shield meant to protect the vulnerable, not just a sword to punish. This unexpected story of a hungry child, a struggling mother, and a judge who remembered his humanity spread far beyond the courtroom. It became proof that compassion can flourish even in the most rigid systems. What's your experience with the justice system? Share your thoughts below, and remember, sometimes hope wears a judge's robe. See you next time.